compared to 17% of heterosexual women, and 13% of lesbians. 22% of bisexual women have been raped by an intimate partner, compared to 9% of heterosexual women. 40% of gay men and 42% of bisexual men have experienced sexual violence other than rape, compared to 21% of heterosexual men. I found myself to be a part of this statistic back in 2002. On December 22nd, I sent my children to their aunt's house and tried to piece together a perfect holiday for my boys. Being that I had broken up with my ex, who lived with me, I was very vulnerable, at a very vulnerable point in my life. I was young and trying new things, so my ex was a female. On that night, I was asked by a female associate to take her home to get some items. I accepted. First, because I considered myself to be a kind person, and also because I was attracted to this person. I was 22 and thought, why not? Seize the moment. The ride was fine until I got back to my apartment building. A few minutes after pulling up to my home, I found myself on the floor in my house with a knife to my throat, praying that God would just get me out of this situation alive. This was the first time that I could see my life flash before my eyes, over and over again. The night had just begun. 13 hours of forced oral and anal intercourse. All I can remember is blood everywhere and praying that I could just survive and get back to my children. The night was over. It was about 7 a.m. and she told me that I better not tell or else she would come back and kill me. She took my house keys and my money, then left. My voice was silenced. I wondered who would believe me anyway. I was a young girl who was a young mother at the age of 15. Many viewed me as being promiscuous, and I was. I used sex as a vice to cope with issues that I faced in life. I called the crisis line and spoke to someone who told me that it wasn't my fault. But deep inside, I felt that it was. I questioned and went back and forth on if I didn't give her a ride, maybe I flirted, I felt guilt and indulged in self-blame. I talked to associates who told me not to tell, they would just handle it the street way. I talked to my family and they questioned if it was rape or did I consent. My voice was silenced and I fell into a deep, depressed state. I called back the hotline a few weeks later because I suffered with nightmares and constant torture of watching the night replay over and over in my head. While on the phone with an advocate, she advised me again that it wasn't my fault. She asked me, what do you do when you find yourself in that type of stressor situation? My answer was, I find my strength in prayer. Soon after we hung up, I prayed and was strengthened. I refused to be silenced because no matter who I was or my past activities, I was still a victim. I went to the police department to file a report. Detective Hill of the Asbury Park Police Department assisted me. He took my report and filed a complaint. I went through the process, continuing to use what strengthened me. Being sexually assaulted by a female was something that was not really talked about back then. Who would really believe that a woman could rape another woman, but it happened. On the day that I faced grand jury, I was laughed at by one of the jurors while I told my story. A few weeks later, the rape, assault, and theft charges were downgraded to one charge of disorderly persons and sent back to municipal court. The conviction got her 90 days jail time, and she was set free that day. It was considered time served because she never bailed out from the day that she was initially arrested. I wasn't eligible at that time for a restraining order because I did not meet the criteria, so I was left alone to fend for myself. I was offered supportive services through 180, but most importantly, I had prayer to carry me through. See, prior to the assault, I was a struggling single parent of 2 boys. I was a high school dropout, but did obtain my GED. My life was filled with unfulfilled dreams and hopes for a better life. I was living from place to place, and working was rare and few because my focus was off. My voice was silenced behind hurt and embarrassment of life, but mostly because of the assault. But my life soon took a turn as I began to refocus and concentrate on inner healing. Today, I open my mouth and continue to share the story of my survival. I stand today as a certified mentor and a volunteer with the Prison Fellowship, assisting those who are in the process of re-entry. I'm also a confidential sexual assault advocate with the Union County Rape Crisis Center. But most importantly, I am a person who strongly believes that anyone can begin again, no matter what the obstacles of life may be. I don't know all of your stories, but if you're standing here today and listening to me, no matter what your story is, we all have the same ending statement, that we survived. We may have cried, but we survived. We may have been beaten, but we survived. We may have endured nightmares, but we survived. I want you to take this time and think of where you have been, but only briefly, because the key part of your story is that you survived. And if everybody can take this time and declare with me on tonight and say, I'm a survivor because I survived. Thank you.